then you're going to be constantly moving with this idea that I'm not going to follow.
This is Leadership Beyond Burnout. I'm your host, Dr. Kimberly L. Wilson. I want to welcome back all of my fired up friends. And if you're new here, this is the show that helps leaders heal, lead, and succeed. Now, this episode today is going to be sponsored by Leadership and Resilience Consultants. We have a special guest today. I'd like to introduce to you Natasha Bryant, LCSW. So, Natasha Bryant, she's a licensed clinical social worker and CEO of Speak Life Transformation. She's on a mission to expand mental health and wellness education and services beyond the walls of the therapy office. Having worked 14 plus years in the field of social work, providing mental health services in educational and outpatient settings, she's helped individuals shift from feeling overwhelmed and stuck to confident and bold. Natasha is an author, a confidence mindset coach, a psychotherapist, and speaker, all helping people to unapologetically live their best life as their best self. Without further ado, let's welcome Natasha.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, thank you so much for being here today. I just want to dive into your company and all the things you're doing and how you decided to expand beyond the therapy walls. So let's start out with an easy question. How do you bring healing to the world?
Oh, that's such a good question. First, thank you for having me on your show. I'm so honored. One of the ways that I bring healing to the world is just really helping people relieve the pressure of perfection, relieve the pressure of trying to get everything right, relieve the pressure of the what ifs so they can just fully just live their life as their authentic self and really go after the goals that they want. Because often that pressure is causing us to overwork, causing us to question and second guess ourselves, which then leads to burnout a lot of times. So just really giving them that freedom to just breathe and do what's best for them and follow their intuition for sure.
That's wonderful. Though you said 14 plus years you've been doing this, and I'm really interested about the journey from where you decided, okay, I don't want to just be in the office because like we are all, regardless of your licensure, we're pretty much conditioned that like you're getting this degree so you can be in these four walls and just see clients all day long. So what was that journey like?
Yeah, so to be honest, I had no desire to be an entrepreneur. That was not on my goal list. That was not on my bucket list, right? And so I tell my story at a time where I just I had a plan, and my plan was working till it wasn't working anymore. And we probably all as planners have that happen, and then you have to make a pivot. And I thought the pivot I was making was the right pivot, which was I was working at it. So I worked in schools full time, doing any type of mental health in schools, and part time doing private practice with a group practice. And then my plan was to then leave the schools and continue on in the group practice, and add another group practice because for those who are social workers, we're super hustlers. We have more than one job. It's just within our nature in our field to have multiple jobs. So just being at one practice wasn't enough. So it was always the plan to then retire in group practice with one or two practices that I was part of. And I remember I was starting to make this shift of like, okay, it's that time, that following the plan. It's that time to, make this shift into now leaving the schools and going into a group practice. And I'm thinking about, where I'm going to apply, and I'm going to go on Indeed or Career Builder, like where I want to go. And I remember God downloaded on me. He said, well, why are you about to give another practice a percentage of your worth when you can take the whole 100%?
Mm.
And I said, you know what, God, you're right. Why am I about to do that? And I just went with it, and I said, you know what, I'm going to start my own practice. And it literally was just literally a thought that came down from the Holy Spirit, and then I just ran with it. And from that point on, I decided to open my practice, but with the intention of, one, I wanted to open it where people can see more. I'd be able to have access to a Black therapist, because, as you know, it's a very small percentage of a Black therapist or people of color who are able to find a therapist that looks like them. And then also it was during the pandemic, so it was 2020 when I decided to do this. I started my practice in the beginning of 2021. And so the idea of being able to do online therapy, which was something I always wanted to do, but it wasn't a thing until COVID hit. And the idea of just being able to bring therapy to wherever someone is, whether it's their home, their office, their car, was very appealing to me. So not only will they be able to access anybody throughout the state, not just now somebody who lives in my same neighborhood or same city, because if it's in person, you obviously need to be near, but now anybody in the states that I'm licensed in can be able to have access to my services. And then I also wanted to do coaching, because I realized as I was doing therapy that self-esteem building, confidence building was always, whether I was meeting with male, female couples, a teen, an adult, I always had to address the issue of confidence and self-esteem in order for them to reach the healing and the goals they were seeking. And I was thinking, if I'm noticing this in all my therapy clients, and then that means that I can really, that people even outside of therapy, people who don't necessarily need therapy, could really benefit from really understanding their worth and their value and building that confidence. And so that's when I decided to do confidence mindset coaching. And then also the pandemic brought in a lot of awareness for mental health in the office. A lot of employees realize, okay, we can no longer say, don't talk about mental health, don't talk about your personal stuff. That don't got nothing to do with us at work. You have to deal with that at home. Now they realize, oh no, we actually have to talk about it because it's impacting how they're showing up for work or they're being able to be productive. And so I wanted to take advantage of that with bringing some mental wellness into companies as well. And so providing that consultation to companies, doing workshops, trainings, etc., to bring that mental wellness education in the workplace was another vision of mine. And so that's when that's what I decided to really model Speak Like Transformation after.
Okay. So when you made the shift, I heard you say that, you got the download that yes,
Mm-hmm.
it's time for you to do that. What I'm really curious about, because so many times when people make career shifts,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's the product of burnout, especially in the teaching profession. And I wasn't
Yeah.
sure if you were teaching, not teaching in the schools with elementary, middle, high school, or
Mm-hmm.
was it university level? So did you see that? Do you tend to see that when people are experiencing their overwhelm and overwork?
Yeah, no. So I was in K through 12 schools throughout my years in the school setting, and definitely burnout. I saw a lot of educators leave education totally and went into a totally different field, like real estate, for example,
Right.
because of that burnout. And so within my field, social work, burnout is real in social work for sure. And so it can easily become burnout with just the amount of downloads of taking on people's needs and constantly showing up. That compassion fatigue is very real within that the service field. And so I definitely have seen people make the transition, sometimes just leave the whole field as a result of burnout. But one thing I often say to people is that before you make the transition, right, really think about, is the overwhelm, the burnout that I'm feeling, is it because I no longer have a passion for the field, or is it because of the environment that I'm working in that's causing me to question the passion I have for the field? Because sometimes we leave thinking that, oh, I'm done with this. I can't take on another patient. I can't take on another student. When really it's the toxic environment that you're working in that's causing you to feel like this is not for me, and not really that you lost passion for it. And so I always challenge people to really think about that when they're in burnout and are thinking about that transition.
Right. And I love that you said that their work environment, because so many times the pressure is put on the individual to change their behaviors, when a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times it's that systemic dysfunction that
Mm-hmm.
creates those type of environments. But also, when you talk about our field, another thing that I've seen, in addition to not just what this systemic environment is, or what's happening in the field, it's the way they personally handle things. Like I can remember talking to a colleague a couple of months ago, and she was saying, "Oh, I'm just so busy. I'm overwhelmed. I'm working this many hours. Blah 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 blah." But I watched and saw her, like, insert herself into a situation to relieve the pressure on another therapist when she said she was overwhelmed. And I was like, "Ma'am, I just heard the whole diatribe about you
Right.
being overwhelmed. So why are you offering yourself
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
solve this? Well, I just want to make sure we're all
Mm-hmm.
trained.
Mm-hmm.
They can
Mm-hmm.
handle it. Leave it alone."
Yeah. Yeah.
So have you seen that as well? Some of their personal behaviors.
Yes. And you know what's so funny? This is something I just recently said to a client, and it has now been my new like analogy that I use, right? Because it's not even just in the work, it's as women, we do that in the home as well. We take on all the responsibilities, like nobody's here to help me. I'm doing everything in the household, right? And what I said to a client was that, a position can't be filled unless it's vacant, right? And if we are filling every single position and then wondering why nobody's taking on the role where it's not vacant, because you have filled the position, right? And so you have to allow yourself to back up and let the position be vacant so somebody can see there's a need and fill the position themselves, or help them see, hey, there's this vacant position here, whatever it is, I need help with this. Or if the therapist at your job is like, oh, well, we need to, maybe you should take on that role. It sounds like it's something that you should be able to, you should take on, or ask someone to help you with, right? But if it's not vacant, then it can't be filled. And so there's that self-reflection on ourselves when we have to really think about, am I holding all these positions, which then is causing nobody to see there's a need because I am fulfilling the need.
Right.
Um, and not realizing that I'm going beyond my capacity, and hoping someone would save me, but I really have the power to save myself by saying no, or begin to step back, or to delegate, etc., so that those positions can be vacant, those responsibilities can be vacant, so somebody else can take them on.
Mm. So when you get someone like that who just won't allow positions to be vacant and they're experiencing burnout,
Yeah.
what is the go-to strategy, either that you use to remain in burnout recovery, or that you suggest your clients begin to integrate into their lives?
Yeah. Well, one is taking a moment to really think about what in my life is causing me stress. And really identifying, like, just the 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 important piece is, the first part really is identifying, giving yourself the space and time to do some self-discovery, so you can start identifying, well, why am I feeling burned out? Because a lot of times we just end up reacting to life, and so we're just responding, and we're not actually stepping back to think and seeing from the outside, right? Reflecting and seeing, well, why am I so burnt out? So first is figuring out, well, why am I feeling stressed, right? What is causing me to feel burnt out? And then as a result of that, like, what do I need to start saying no to? What are some of the things I need to start allowing, giving myself the permission to say no without guilt, right? Giving myself the permission to be able to pull myself away from without worrying about judgment, right? And so really first identifying, why am I stressed? And then secondly, identifying the boundaries I need to set so that I can relieve that stress, so I can remove remove that stuff. So boundary setting is really important. I would say is the first thing to do. But you have to recognize, well, what's causing me stress. So you know what boundaries you actually need to set.
Mm-hmm. All right. So what's I don't know which question I want to ask first. Um, so I think one of the things I've seen is that when people begin to get on the quest to make any type of change,
Mm-hmm.
there's grieving this grieving
Mm-hmm.
process that nobody talks about because
Yes.
relationships change or
Mm-hmm.
there are feelings of, there's a loss of feelings of importance.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you have them address some of that so that it's not a short-term change?
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the things I love that you brought that up because I do talk to my clients about the grief of the ideal version, the ideal relationship, the ideal goal,
Mhm.
right? Because part of the burnout too is trying to make that ideal outcome happen. It's like if I just, keep showing up this way, or if I just keep helping in this way, then maybe this person will show up this way, or maybe things at work will change, or maybe people finally will see me and acknowledge that I'm doing a good job or that I belong here, right? So like the burnout a lot of times happens because we're pleasing, proving, I call them three please, pleasing, proving, and perfecting, because we're trying to get this ideal outcome. And so the grief is recognizing that that ideal outcome isn't the reality of the situation, right? It's not the
Mhm.
reality of the relationship. It's not the reality of the person, right? And so part of it is getting to a place of acceptance, accepting that the relationship, the environment, it is what it is, so that you can then start making realistic expectations for that relationship, for the setting that you're in, for yourself. But the hard part about that is there's this idea, like, but then they lose hope. Like if I let go of this ideal, if I just accept it as it is, then that means that I lose, then there's no hope that it would ever happen. It's like, no, there's not that it would ever, it's never going to happen. But but by helping you accept the reality, then you can actually make realistic expectations and goals that will then get you to your outcome. Because as long as you're in this ideal mindset, you are, not setting realistic expectations for the people in your lives, for yourself, and you're going to constantly keep hitting that block because people are not going to be able to show up the way you're asking them to, or the environment's not going to be able to change because you're focusing on things you cannot change, or you're asking people to show up in ways they don't have the capacity to do so. But when you accept people for who they are, when you accept the situation for what it is, then you can be like, okay, now that I know what this person is and how far they can go, this is what my goal can be. Or now that I know this environment is not going to change and this is what it is, now I know what moves I need to make sure that I can reach my goals in a way that's realistic based on what's being shown to me in this situation.
And thank you for clarifying that. And I want to weave back into something you said, acceptance, because I believe a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times um, it gets misconstrued as
Mm-hmm.
in when I accept something that I'm in agreement that it's acceptable,
Mm-hmm.
and even if that's bad behavior. So how
Mm-hmm.
would you distinguish that for somebody who's like, I'm not accepting nothing. It shouldn't be like that.
Right, right. Yeah.
Especially when you talk about a team dynamic. If
Mm-hmm.
you're a leader, manager, or you're in charge of a whole organization, what does
Mm-hmm.
that mean in terms of that? I didn't
Yeah.
ask you a whole lot, did
No, 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 that's good. I think the reason why, and that's a perfect example of what you said, where you were like, I'm not accepting it anyway because they shouldn't have done X, Y, and Z, right? One of the biggest block of acceptance is control, right? It's like I'm not accepting this because I don't want I don't want to accept that that's the reality because that's not what I want. That's not
I?
the outcome that I want. I want the X outcome. So that's one reason why acceptance can be hard, is that if I accept, then that means that I can't have the outcome exactly the way I want it to be. And so by letting it go and just saying, oh, it is what it is, then I have to accept or have to face an outcome that I don't want to face. I have to face a disappointment. Or I have to let go of what I want.
I
And
personally failed. because
Right. Yes. Yes. Like I failed at doing X, Y, and Z. And so accepting will then just mean that I'm never going to get the outcome that I wanted. Right. Um, and really acceptance is just, and the other part of like, well, then I'm agreeing that this person's behavior was okay. That's the other acceptance, right? Or the other myth or misconception about
right,
acceptance is that by accepting or forgiving, I am then saying that this person's behavior is okay, right? Acceptance is not even about saying this is something that I like and enjoy. Acceptance is not about saying, oh, this person gets a pass for what they did, right? Acceptance is all about just you recognizing the reality of the situation that it is. That's all it is, right? It's allowing you to get out of the focus on what you want and the control of it all, and the focusing on like making think. And this is another type of thinking. This is called automatic thinking. It's fairy tale as fantasy is fantasy thinking, fairy tale, or sometimes called fairy tale thinking, sometimes they call it fantasy thinking. But it's this idea that the world should work out this way, people should be doing this, or this should be the outcome, and or everything should be fair is another example of that type of thinking, like the world should be fair and balanced. And the reality is the world isn't fair. And not everybody who does good gets good things. Not everybody who makes bad poor choices gets the consequences for that. And that's just how the world is, right? You
yes,
might not like it, but you have to accept the reality that that's sometimes the outcome. And that's the example with acceptance. It's just allowing you to accept the reality so that you can then make the right choice. So if you don't want to, the person did something bad or something hurtful to you, you can accept that that's what they did. They made that poor choice or they hurt you. And then you get to choose, this is how I want to respond. As a result of me accepting that this is what they did, this is the choice they made. Now I can then decide what I want to do next. Do I want to still in a relationship with this person? Do I want to move forward and not have a relationship with this person? But instead of just staying in like, well, no, I'm not I'm not talking to them. So they say sorry to me, right? You might not never get to sorry because that's not what they may do. You have no control over what they decide to do, for example. And so the acceptance allows you to let go of the things you do not have control over. That's what acceptance is. It's like, you know what? I don't have any control over this. This is the reality. I have to accept it so I can then focus on what I can control, which is 99.9% you. So you shift that energy from being upset about how things are not going the way you want to focusing on, well, what can I do about this? How can I show up or change so that it's not as stressful for me or so that I can be able to move forward? That's where you'll start to feel less burnout and stressed and anxious.
right, right. Now, when I've so many times seen leaders in these middleman positions,
Mm-hmm.
even at the highest levels, because you'll have, um, like I did some nonprofit time, and the expectation of the board was X, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I know what they're asking
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
me and the staff is not possible or probable, the numbers that they want to produce
Right.
in
Yeah.
these amount of dollars. And I think it takes a lot sometimes for someone to accept, okay, this is the requirement. It's not possible or probable. So what do they do with that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that goes back to focusing on, well, how can I what can I do to help myself manage this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you can't. So if you fail to accept that, right, then you're going to be constantly moving with this idea that I'm not going to follow or do or show up as my best or listen to what they're saying or whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Until this is changed, because this is ridiculous. Like they know these numbers don't match. Like, this is ridiculous. I'm not even. And then you just end up angry
Mm-hmm.
every single time it comes up. Every single time they talk about the expectations, you just end up becoming more and more angry and stressed because you aren't allowing you to just accept it for what it is so you can be able to move forward. So you stay stuck in the frustration of it all. I'm not
Right.
saying the frustration is invalid, but you have to make the choice. Am I just going to sit in this frustration and be miserable every time I go to work, or be upset every single time this is brought up? Or do I want to allow myself to move forward so I'm not so upset, right?
Right.
Moving forward requires you to accept that for what it is, and then deciding, okay, well, this is what the expectation is. So how can I make this work for me? What
Mhm.
can I do to make this better for me? Do I need to ask for help? Do I want to advocate and possibly see about coming up with some ideas to make this more beneficial for everybody? Do I need to change my work schedule, or, be able to see about moving? So then when you start focusing on what can I do so this can be less stressful, or do I need to leave? Right? Or is this just too much for me altogether? And
Right.
I'm just realizing, what, this is not for me and I need to go elsewhere. Right. But really focusing on the question you always ask yourself: do I want to stay stuck in the anger or the frustration or the bitterness or disappointment, all the different upsetting emotions that are coming up as a result of this outcome that's happening that you don't like? Or
Mhm.
do I want to help myself move forward? And that's going to require acceptance.
Mhm. So what I hear you also saying is just being open to consider all the possibilities and not just travel down the road that you're given. Like, this is how it has to be. Well, but there's a whole lot more possibilities, not just
And you know what? That's so important, because I've mentioned this to individuals who fall on that perfectionism, the high achieving, and just also just the like dwelling on the negative thing, that type of thinking that really has you on this narrow path where all you
Mhm.
can see is the outcome that you want. And it's hard to be able to see that even if this outcome does, even if the plan you have doesn't work out the way you wanted to, there's so many more options. But that
Right.
fixated mindset will cause you to believe that it has to go this way. And if it doesn't go this way, then it's not going to work out, or the world is going to end, right? Or everything's going to fall apart, right?
Right.
When you allow yourself to recognize, well, if it doesn't work out this way, there's actually more outcomes. That's where the freedom comes in. I was talking about earlier. That's when you end up reaching the freedom and you can still be disappointed because, plan A is always your favorite plan or your most preferred plan. But if plan A is not available, right,
Mhm.
being open to plan B, C, D, or F helps you to be able to see what other options you have so you can be able to move forward. Because at the end of the day, you have to think about, what's my ultimate goal, right? And I'm saying
Mhm.
stuck on trying to make plan A work, even though plan A is not available, is that going to really help me reach the goal I'm trying to reach?
Mm. Beautiful. So how do you implement this into your life? Like,
Mhm.
what are some of your practices that you use that maybe someone in the audience could begin to integrate into their lifestyle?
Yeah, one thing, I'm a big boundary setter for sure. Sometimes I say, I have. It's not me at not learning how to say no more. Is learning how to say yes more, because I'm definitely quick to say no with something that I know is beyond my capacity. Right. So it's recognizing, for me, I recognize, all right, this is how far I can go, and I'm not. I give myself the permission to stand up for myself and advocate for myself. And that's what boundaries is all about. So setting those boundaries. I also, when I'm realizing there's something stressing me out, and being aware of how that feels in your body is so important. Because if you don't know what it feels like in your body, you could be stressed and have no idea, right?
Exactly.
You could be feeling tightness in your chest. You could be having muscle tension, and you're not even paying attention to it. And then you become so immune to it that you think it's a norm to just feel tension in your body all day long, right?
Yes,
Um,
yes. What do I do without this? And
right,
then
right,
you seek it out, like the young lady I was talking about before. Oh, I have a free moment. I can't have this.
right,
What
right,
position can I
exactly.
fill?
Yeah, it feels uncomfortable to not be stressed, right? That's what ends up happening. And so also, when I can tell when I'm feeling stressed, I start to get hot. Like if I'm working too much, like my thoughts, I get clouded, where I'm not as fast as thinking, and I'm feeling like I can literally feel my brain like running fast. I can feel that. So I can feel how my body is starting to respond to the stress, and then I immediately take a break. That's
Right,
something else I do. I immediately will stop myself and take a break, give myself the time, even when my thoughts are like, "But you don't have time to take a break. You gotta get this
right.
work done." I still take a break. And that's something else that helps me be able to de-stress in those moments. And acceptance. I mean, even when something is not, see, I will advocate and try to, like I'll advocate if something doesn't make sense to me or I disagree, like the example you gave, I will advocate and speak up. But then if I realize, okay, it's not budging, like they're not going to budge, this is what it is. Right. Then I realize, okay, I have to let it go because I'm stressing myself out now trying to make this happen. And I'm not getting anything done. Like the goal is not working. So that's when I tell myself, like, hey, Tasha, you just have to accept it. So what are we going to do about it? Are we, how are we going to make this work for us so that you're able to get the job done, because you still have to get the job done, right? And so what's your plan? So then I start thinking about, all right, well, this is the rules, this is what it says. So how am I going to make this work for me so I don't feel stressed throughout this process of doing whatever they're asking me to do? So I would say those are the three things that I do.
Okay. And so if our audience members could pick one out of those to begin to start, where would you suggest they start?
I would suggest, the therapist in me would suggest really getting that mind-body connection, because a lot of this stuff you won't be able to do if you're not even aware of it, right? And so I would say first, doing some mindfulness practices that really help you start to be in tune with how your body feels, how stress feels in your body. So taking moments where you're doing some deep breathing, where you are taking a moment to feel like, if there's just doing a body scan, like, do I feel stress anywhere in my body? And that really can be a 5-minute moment where you just take 5 minutes to just scan your body from the top of your head down to your toes, and going from your head to your eyes to your jaw to your shoulders to your back, etc., and seeing, is there anywhere in my body that I'm feeling tense? And if so, let me breathe in deeply into that area. Just breathe in and imagine the oxygen going to that area to your body. And then as you exhale, releasing the tension in that moment as you exhale, just start really getting that mind-body connection. Because once you really connect with that, then you can see what things are causing the stress, to then identify what boundaries you need to set. Then you'll be able to recognize when you're feeling stressed because something is changing that you don't like, and now it's time to accept it so you can stop feeling stressed, right? So that mind-body connection is so important, to be aware. Your body is the biggest sign for you. If you're not able to identify the thoughts and the emotions, your body will definitely tell you. So you can use your body as your first go-to to recognize the stress that you're feeling.
I absolutely love that, because I do believe that people are very disconnected from their bodies, because we have so much rush going on, get here, get there, and we don't even recognize that we're operating at such high speeds and frequencies that we miss the thing that's going on within ourselves. But we can point it out to somebody else.
Yeah. Like if you're having like gut issues, for example, that could be stress, right? It's like little things like that we might just push aside to, like, oh, I ate something bad, but if you're constantly having gut issues, for example, or you're constantly feeling lower back pain, for example, that might be due to stress.
I want to touch a hot potato for a minute.
Okay, I'm ready. You can throw it. I'll catch it.
Okay. Well, just put on some mitts.
I'll put on some mitts. Okay.
So, not whenever. What I've seen lately is when people need to address something, or they want to change something. I've seen this phenomenon lately, and I don't know what's causing it. I'm not going to blame it on social media, but their inability to move forward or to change some of their dynamics. I've heard, well, I can't because so-and-so is a narcissist. And I can't do this. I know they're a narcissist. Don't you think they're a narcissist? And that's been a very frustrating when I say, well, how many very clear diagnosed narcissists? There aren't as many as the media and everyone would have you think, because everybody has at least 3 or 4 narcissists. What? So,
Yeah.
have you seen that phenomenon, or has it been a impediment to making changes?
Well, you know what? Our field, every 5 to 7 years, there's a theme, there's a hot topic of the industry. Like in the early 2000s, it was like the ADHD, and then anxiety and depression became hot, several years ago, right? Narcissism is the hot topic, that everybody is diagnosed with this this time. Yes, everybody's getting the diagnosis of narcissist. Um, I would say that I wouldn't say that. And also, you know what? What I want to touch is the gaslighting. Gaslighting started first, and then
Mm-hmm.
gaslighting then led to narcissism as the diagnoses, right? Um, and so I think part of that leads to blaming others for your own, like how you're showing up. And I think and it sounds like that's what you're saying. It sounds like some people are saying that I can't move forward because I have a narcissist in my family, or I'm dating or married to an. Okay, I just want to make sure. Yeah,
Yes.
it goes to the same. It's the same sentiment when people would say, "Well, my mom was a single mom, or my dad abused me, and as a result of that, I'm the way I am, or I'm not able to do X, Y, and Z." And the blaming doesn't help you move forward. It keeps you stuck because it's what's happening. I tell people, and this is what I often help people understand: if they're giving any credit to anybody, if it's people are judging me, they're not going to appreciate me if I show up this way, or if the narcissist is, doing X and I can't show up this way. I tell people all the time that when you're giving all that power away to somebody else, then you are going to feel powerless, right? And then you end up giving someone else all your power. An analogy, if you don't mind me sharing, I use analogies a lot. I think in pictures and so I use analogies a lot in therapy, because I'm a picture person. But one analogy I often give my clients is like, imagine you have a basket of eggs, right? You have this beautiful basket and it's full of eggs, and these eggs are really, really important to you. And each egg represents your worth. One egg is your worth, your value, your passion, your purpose, your goals, your strengths. They all represent you. And because that they represent you, you care for them a lot. It means a lot to you. And you're asking someone to take care of it because let's just say you're traveling or something, you can't take care of your eggs, but you want somebody to manage, watch over them, make sure they're good for when you come back. So the other person's like, cool, I'll watch them, like I'll take very good care of them. You hand your basket, the most valuable thing, your valuable eggs, to somebody else, and they're watching them, but they're not going to take care of it the way you take care of it, right? And they're not, because they're not yours, they're not going to value them as much as you value them. And so they might put them on the shelf and leave them there, and you ask them specifically to not put them on the shelf, or they might crack it and they're like, oh shoot, I cracked it, but it's not broken, so it should be all right. And they're not really going to care for it as much because it's not their eggs, right? And yet you gave them the responsibility to care for exactly the way you would want to care for them. Then you come back for your basket, and you look at your basket, and it's nothing like what you gave them. You have some cracked eggs, you're missing the egg, and you're like, what happened? And they're looking at the basket like, well, I tried my best. I was busy. I had to work, and I had to take care of a person. I did the best I could. Like, I made sure they're all here. I mean, well, except one, but they're all here. They're intact. And you're looking at this person like, wait, but I trusted you, or I depended on you to care for the eggs. And so the analogy here is showing you gave this person all this power to care for your value, your worth, what's important to you, your identity, and expecting that person to love it, adore it, and manage it and protect it the way you would, when that's not even theirs, right? And so when we blame other people, it's very similar, or we're expecting other people to show up a certain way or see us a certain way. And when they don't, we then begin to question our own worth, our value, or what I can and cannot do. So you're giving this person so much of your own power. You're saying pretty much you control how I show up. Your actions determine what I'm capable of, what my worth and value is, how to determine my worth and value, how to determine my identity. But when you actually snatch that power back, right? You take that power back, then it doesn't even matter what if the narcissist is doing all the things, or if you grew up a certain way, or if people aren't liking what you like or understanding you. It won't even matter because you recognize I have the power to determine how I show up, my worth, my identity. I'm the one that determines all of that, regardless of what someone else says. And so that's what I usually say to people when you're giving so much power away, that do they even deserve that much power? Does this person deserve all that power?
Right.
Or do you want that power back?
Right. Right. It's almost like we protect our money, our credit cards, and our socials more than we do
Mm.
ourselves or our bags for some people.
Yeah.
Bag.
Yes, the bags. Yes, yes, yes. Or hair.
So was there a time when you had to take back some of your power, or have you always, I know you said you love to set boundaries, so has that always been your natural state, or was that a trial and error?
Oh no, I definitely had to learn to set my boundaries, for sure. Like really speaking up. I grew up not really speaking up for myself, or when I did, I would get the feedback of you're so upfront, like you're so forward, like it was too much. Like I was too
Mhm.
honest, right? And so then I would question, well, maybe I don't need to be saying certain things, or maybe I just need to be quiet. And then professionally, I remember when I first started my career, I would speak up. I got when I first started, I wasn't speaking up enough. Like I got the feedback, like you're not aggressive enough. We need you to, take on more leadership. I had no idea what they meant by that because I'm like, well, I am doing some things I didn't know. And then as I started to get more comfortable and confident in my role, I started to speak up more. And then I became, the sassy one, right? The one who, yeah, and it was a joke. Oh, sassy Tasha, she's the one that's going to say something, right? And then another job that I ended up leaving was as a result of me advocating and really, speaking up for things that just weren't right ethically, and just really being
Mhm.
professional with it, but just not afraid to state it. Then I was not being a team player, right? Then I was being aggressive, right? And so there has been so many times where I would then have to think like, am I doing too much? Am I being aggressive? And so I had to start to really find myself in a sense of being very confident and knowing that, well, what I'm doing is part of my values and what I believe in, right? And
Right.
this is what truly connects with me. And if I silence myself, like the last job I had, when they were saying, "Oh, you're not being a team player by speaking up and not just going along with what they want you to go along with," I
Mhm.
realized if I went along, I'd be going truly against my own values and my own belief system, professionally and personally. And I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to break myself to conform and then walk around not knowing who I am. And so that was a turning point for me to really, even when I was under the fire, because I was under the fire, because I was
Mm.
not breaking, I did not conform. And that really helped me stand even stronger in my sense of self-worth and identity, for sure.
Oh, I love that story. So, if you were going to issue a challenge to our audience members, whether it's in their personal lives, their
Mhm.
families, or at work, what challenge would you like to issue?
Yeah, I give challenges all the time. And then when you ask me that question, I'm thinking, which one would I choose? Because I'm a big, advocate of giving you something practical. Like we can talk all day long, but let's talk about, okay, what's the next thing? What to put to work, right? And I think what we just talked about, it reminds me of a challenge I just gave to someone, and I actually really did it as a result of that, and inspired me to do a post on it. Um, by really saying this mantra to yourself, come up with a mantra of one. It could be any mantra that helps you really give yourself the permission to let go of the things that you don't have control over and accept the things that some things that you do have control over and things you don't. And one way to be able to do that is to say to yourself, it is okay.
Mm.
It is okay. Those four words are so powerful because when you're upset about accepting something that you don't like, right? More than likely, it's like, no, it's not okay because it should be this way, right? Or if
Right.
you're being a perfectionist, right? And you have this vision and you want things to go a certain way, but someone's not doing it the way you want them to do it, or things are not turning out. And you're like, no, but it has to go this way in order for work, right? It's like this, and that causes stress. Like even you and I, you did some examples too of like, you're feeling tight. That's the tension we're feeling in our bodies. Like we're
Mm-hmm.
able to like model that even in our expression of just give an example, because that's literally how it feels inside our body, where we're literally tensed up because we're saying to ourselves it's not okay,
Okay.
because things are going to fall apart. So if you just say it is okay, you'll be able to start to allow yourself to let go of those things that you can't control and focus on the things that you can.
All right. It is okay. You heard it right here.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom with our audience members and me. And I learned a lot from you. And I appreciate you being here.
Yes, yes, yes. I really enjoyed it for sure.
All right. Until next time. Right, everyone. This has been Leadership Beyond Burnout. I'm your host, Dr. Kimberly L. Wilson. Tune in every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific on E360 TV. Until next week, we will see you then.